Hi, everyone.
Hey, thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thanks for joining. I was going to give a couple more seconds for people to come in and then can introduce the main speaker and host of our webinar. And just to make sure that this is clear throughout the webinar, there is a QA functionality. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. You can even do so anonymously as well, and me or Cheryl will answer it either in the chat or live in the webinar. So again, yes, thank you for joining us. I'm Shannon from the 1104 Health team, and today we're going to hear directly from Cheryl Stratos on her story navigating melanoma and tools and advice that she wants to pass along to others that are going through it. I won't steal the spotlight here on her introduction, but Cheryl was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma and enrolled in a clinical trial that ended up saving her life. She has since dedicated herself to advocating for melanoma research advancement in many ways, one of which is being the chief patient advocate at 1104 Health. So we're happy to have her here today. I'll hand it off to
Oh,
you, Cheryl.
great. Thank you for the introduction. And I appreciate you all joining us today for this series. We really are want to use this to help patients discover what they don't know when they're diagnosed with cancer. Also, yesterday was clinical trial day, which is a really important day for everybody who has experienced a clinical trial or survived through a clinical trial. Unfortunately, because, I guess the good thing is there's a lot more treatment options for a lot of different types of cancers now, but the downside is about 80% of the clinical trials that are coming up are opening are not getting filled. So we want to really push forward that the next best treatment that is going to change the way we fight cancer is going to come from another clinical trial. So it's really important that we, drive that message forward. Um, Unfortunately, when I was diagnosed, there wasn't a lot of options to research for clinical trials and clinical data. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, is all I knew at the point in early November of 2009. I went to my doctor's appointment after not feeling well and did a PET scan that revealed I had cancer in my lungs, liver, and lymph nodes. It lit up like a Christmas tree. I'd never seen a PET scan before, so I wasn't sure how to take it until I realized that the lit up stuff is pretty bad. I really felt like I needed to do something. They felt like the primary was in my lungs, so it directed me to lung cancer. We waited a couple weeks and got into a lung cancer oncologist at Memorial Sloan Kettering, thinking that I would have a final pathology, within a few days. By the time I got to my appointment, I still hadn't had a final pathology, but I found out very quickly that you can't really treat your cancer until you name it. And for me, it took about 45 days for that process to happen. And that was a long 45 days, let me tell you. And I'm sure a lot of you have been there. Um, when I got the call that from my oncologist to tell me what I had, it was November 25th, 2009, the night before Thanksgiving. I picked up the phone. Here I am thinking I had lung cancer, and he said I had melanoma cancer. And I thought, wow, that's probably so much better because isn't that skin cancer? And he was silent. And then, of course, Mike and I quickly got on the Google machine, which wasn't good. We found that melanoma cancer, the protocols hadn't changed for about 15 years. And the treatment options weren't there weren't there were two. They didn't have extreme success rates, especially for stage 4 melanoma patients. So I went back to Memorial Sloan Kettering and saw a melanoma doctor who informed me that my melanoma was really advanced and that they would unlikely want to treat me unless they got this new phase 1 clinical trial. And it was for this drug. All he said was PLX 4032. Um, and we asked them what that drug actually was, and he said it was a new BRAF inhibitor. It actually went in and turned off those rapidly reproducing cancer cells and allowed your body's immune system to actually overtake and kill the cancer. And we thought that sounded really cool. The only problem is they hadn't gotten approved and they didn't know when they were going to get approved for it. They had just closed a trial, which very famously, ipilimumab was featured at ASCO in 2010 as the revolutionary change to melanoma cancer, but it had just closed for FDA approval, which means that even an IRB, or an internal review board within the hospital, could not even do a compassionate use for that drug. So I was kind of out of luck. There were really no options except for if they get approved for this new drug. So we found out that, you really need to, as a naive person, entering the cancer scene for the first time, not understanding mutation or treatment options or success rates. There's no kind of, one size fits all. We found out very quickly that it's not how fast you get treated, but how you get treated can determine your success. Um, I think the hardest thing that any of us have probably ever experienced is getting into a clinical trial. There are so many criteria that take before you're accepted into clinical trial. Um, Mike and I went into several of the top institutions in the United States, probably in the world, trying to get into different trials, which we weren't accepted into. But my husband, he is he's my concierge, which he took over everything, the research. There was no real way to compile the data because of our background. We looked at all the information out there, tried to figure out where the hospitals were moving, where was our best place to go to find this trial. It finally landed us to find out that the trial had been approved at UCLA, and we got into that trial, and I was there for 38 months. The PLX 4032, which we now know as Zelboraf, became the fastest drug ever approved by the FDA. The amazing thing about this drug is that they're utilizing it for all different types of cancers. Melanoma research has been pivotal in helping other cancer treatments between the immunotherapy and the inhibitors. I think that, you really learn that, what to expect on clinical trials. For me, I had no idea. I never knew anybody who had been on a trial. They try to prepare you. They tell you about all the different side effects and things that you could experience, and they are really scary. I will tell you that I personally had every side effect for that drug. In fact, when I talked to the actually at the time, but right before Genentech, I guess Roche originally held the drug, and now it's Genentech. Uh, they knew exactly who I was. I was like the dot, and I experienced not only all the side effects, but I turned out to be the only super responder from the first group of 20 patients that were enrolled at UCLA for PLX 4032. Um, the uh, the success rate of that trial was incredible. Everybody that entered into the study were late stage patients given 3 to 6 months to live, and amazingly, most survived 24 months. For whatever reason, I am here today. And in 2015, I stayed on the treatment for about 5.5 years, almost 6 years. And I was starting to lose my eyesight through uveitis, which is a big side effect. And I went into my doctor at UCLA and asked him if we could write the next chapter in the journey of this clinical trial and see if, in fact, it could have a durable response. Because the inhibitors, basically, they were designed to help reduce the tumors rapidly and hopefully slow down your cancer enough, because they thought there would have to be another treatment option that would then go in and actually kill that melanoma. But for me, I did end up having a durable response with that treatment. I did at one point, to reduce the side effects, added a MEK inhibitor. So the combination therapy has been the one that's been the most widely used between those two, between the Zelboraf and the inhibitor. So, but as of today, I'm still no evidence of disease. Um, I'm pretty excited that we've learned that I'm sure a lot of you have learned too. In order to survive anything, success in life, cancer, you must advocate for yourself. You have to determine the right path for your disease, because there is never a one size fits all. And as we grow through our clinical trial cancer journey, as science progresses, I think the therapies are going to get more and more targeted to matching people's, even their own genomes. So it's a very exciting time in cancer research, and especially for melanoma. In melanoma cancer, over the past 5 years, we've seen approvals of 5 or 6 different types of treatment options that all are showing incredible um, rates of survival. Unfortunately, there's no, melanoma for dummies or cancer for dummies, just like one of those step-by-step books that tells you what to do when you're diagnosed, or how to fix your computer. Um, but there are resources out there that can help you, and that has kind of been our goal at 1104 Health, to make your cancer journey and your support system a little easier than what I had to navigate when my husband and I started our journey back in 2009. Um, I wanted to kind of ask a question and stop a little bit and see if there are any people out there that have discussed clinical trials with their doctors. Um,
I just opened a poll that you should be able to see within this platform. You can answer anonymously if you would like. We're just trying to understand the audience and where you're at. As Cheryl just mentioned, many of you maybe understood everything she just said. Many of you understood very little. That's completely okay. And that's why we're here to help no matter where you're at. So I'll give another minute. I see some people responding.
Great, great. Yeah, and I think what we're going to do is kind of use the rest of the time because we do want to develop a series and bring in some subject matter experts in different areas that I think are really important for anybody going through cancer or trying to understand all the different elements. One of the first things that I noticed that I didn't understand that as I talk to more and more patients, they don't even understand their pathology. The most important roadmap that you are ever going to have within your whole cancer journey is know your pathology. What is the type of cancer? What is the mutation of cancer? What's your stage? I've met somebody the other day that called me and they thought they had lung cancer, but it turned out it was a basal cell skin cancer that had gone into their lungs. But he was at a very high-end cancer institute, but had no idea really what his pathology was, because I guess when he went in there, he just kind of blanked out. So it's very important that you understand that is the number one thing that you need to understand, and we'll try to do a session where we take people through understanding pathology in layman's terms.
Mhm.
Um,
And just to announce the poll results so everyone is aware, 1/3 of the attendees have discussed clinical trials with their doctor, and the other 2/3 have not. So it just shows you it's a mixed bag. Everyone's at different points. And the goal of this, and as Cheryl mentioned with the series, is just making sure both your conversation with the provider serves to make sure that you get the best treatment possible for you. That's the ultimate goal. Your provider will know a lot of things, but you bringing to the table any of the research and tools that you have is only going to make the success rate higher.
right. Yeah, it's very important. I think the first, after understanding your pathology, the next thing we're going to dive into is hospitals. What hospitals or what institutions are the best fit for your type of cancer? Because it's really not a one size fits all, and nobody can be everything to everybody. So kind of digging down into, how do you peel back that onion? US News and World Report, they do a really good, and that's what Mike and I used because there wasn't anything out there on what hospitals to go to. But we quickly found out that you have to find out, where are those best oncologists for melanoma cancer, small cell lung cancer, whatever that happens to be. You really want to make sure that they understand your particular type of cancer. Um, the next third thing we want to look at is interviewing your oncologist. This is probably the most important person you're ever going to hire in your whole life is your oncologist. Making sure they're aware, they are well versed in your type of cancer. They understand the treatment that they're going to put you in on, especially if it's a clinical trial or if it's a new drug, new standard treatment of care. There's been so many new drugs out there that have been recently approved, and doctors, general oncologists, aren't as familiar with those drugs, and overdosing is a problem because the toxicity of some of these drugs are really, really quite strong. And it is best for everybody that your oncologist really understands to be able to identify all the side effects that somebody can experience under a particular type of cancer treatment. So we'll be kind of looking at, that process. How do you do that? How do you manage to find a good oncologist for your type of cancer? Number 4. Now, this is really important because when you're on a clinical trial, or you've fallen off a clinical trial and you have to go to another cancer institution, because a lot of times you might be at one center, you might be at UCLA, and you fall off that trial, and then all of a sudden at the other hospital, if you're from California, you got to go down the road to Angeles and start treatment over there. Well, unfortunately, the my charts and the information that we put everything in for our particular institutions aren't transferable from one institution to the other. As as technology savvy as we've gotten, um, one medical system does not communicate with the other. So it's really important that you keep track of your own CTs, your MRIs, your PET scans, your blood tests, your pathology. Back in my day, I had everything in a big binder. But there are some tools that we can talk about on how you can keep all that information handy. Um,
Cheryl, I'm going to stop you to answer a question that was posed into the
okay,
chat,
sure.
which was, did you receive treatment after you came off the trial, or did you have to get a new doctor?
I I only did one treatment really, which was the BRAF inhibitor. I started with Dr. Antonio Ribas at UCLA, which he's a fabulous research doctor. When the drug was approved 38 months later, I transferred to Georgetown University, which was near my home, their hospital, and there was a doctor there that oversaw my treatment until I kind of stopped. And after the 10-year mark, I was not, I haven't been looked at.
Thank you.
And I think that the biggest thing I think that we want to do in this series is really let you understand why you should consider clinical trials. How do you find them? How do you match that trial to you? Because there's biomarkers, there's different types of mutations within your cancer that dictate the strategy you should use. So we're going to kind of dig down into, that to help you better understand and research the clinical trial process. Um, the whole thing about advocating for yourself, things that you should consider, a lot of times you can ask your doctor if you can, either tape or record if you're alone, so you can go back and re-listen to, because a lot of times when the oncologist is telling us this information, it's all a blur. Try to take notes, ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid, because they're practicing medicine and your body has never had cancer before. So every experience is different. Nobody reacts to their cancer treatment in the same way as somebody else. So really take it upon yourself that this is your personal mission. The other thing I found is, regardless of what you do within your cancer treatment, it's going to make you sick, right? And I was really sick. And every morning, I mean, really for like almost 4 years, I was pretty ill in the morning. So I would try to, think outside the box. Tried yoga, I tried Reiki and acupuncture, and all those things really do help. I did equestrian therapy, which, believe it or not, the healing spirit of the horse and they're doing a lot of research on this, especially at Inova, at different hospitals, Sloan Kettering as well. That horse therapy actually really does make you feel better. Um, there's all different types of energy work that can go into helping you get the strength to continue with your treatment, because I know that there are dark days. Um, Eating healing foods is another really important thing. Green leafy vegetables. A lot of times you'll feel very run down. There's different types of vegetables, and even that will spur up your energy level. Remember, garbage in, garbage out. There's been studies that really cancer appears to like sugar. Um, and so you should probably limit your relationship with sugar a little bit. Um, but we can kind of dig in with some nutritionists to look at different types of healing foods, and I really did do that, went on that route as well. Um,
And Cheryl, we do have two questions in here I want to make sure we get to before we're done.
okay,
Um,
sure. Let me
One
start.
of them is a clinical trial a Hail Mary to be considered only when treatments have failed?
I don't think so. Well, here in my experience, um, I'm a super responder. The two other people that were the longest on the trial besides me that didn't fail out had not had any other treatment. They were naive. So I think there's a lot to be said about taking your time, making sure that that's the best possible treatment for your conditions to start, because each time you do cancer treatment, it leaves a mark. It wears on your body. And the more you wear it down, the more you break down the immune system, it gets a little harder. So, but traditionally, and that's why I didn't qualify for a lot of clinical trials, is I hadn't failed off of anything. Traditionally, to enter some trials, they want you to fail out of standard treatment of care. So, long story short,
I would say, long story short, no, it's not a Hail Mary. But if your biomarkers and treatment history or being naive fits the eligibility criteria for that trial, it is absolutely worth considering right then versus having to waste all other options first.
right.
And there's one other question. It says, my oncologist said I do not qualify for trials because of NED. Is that typical of trials?
So, are you currently no evidence of disease?
Maybe for this person, I can email you separately so you can have a personal chat and conversation about it because I think the short answer is this is something to dive into and discuss
Yeah,
further.
yeah. Why don't we set up a call and kind of talk about this, because there are so many different options out there. I think we need to kind of look at and really kind of peel back the onion on what your scenario is, for sure.
I'm going to pop up one other poll with the group, and this is a poll to see if anyone on here is willing to share your story with 1104 Health. It doesn't have to be right now, but I would follow up with you separately. As Cheryl mentioned, we want to build out this webinar series to tackle all the things that Cheryl mentioned to make sure you feel confident going into treatment decisions for your cancer. Anyone who's willing to share their story with us helps enrich the program, but of course, no pressure to do that.
Right, right. And also too, the reason why we are on this journey, at 1104 Health, is we are working on developing a tool with Johns Hopkins, um, to help not only help the patient, but help the oncologist better match, clinical trials for patients. So we are, kind of, trying to, we're dedicated to researching and working to develop a tool that's going to be, support for patients, and for, the industry to match the right trial to the right patient. And I think too, through, especially if you have melanoma, we and we're also doing we're evolving into other cancers. We'd love to be a resource. Of course, if there's also, as another great educational resource, there's the Melanoma Research Foundation that has amazing tools, out there. that can help you, through, understanding, your diagnosis. Um, we definitely, look forward to continuing the conversation. We'd love to hear your ideas. If there's things that we didn't mention that you'd like to find out about, and we'll go out and research and get some subject matter experts in those areas. But what we really want to leave you to with today is don't forget that every time a door closes, another one opens. It's up to you to open it. And I think that we're going to have a fun journey together, and hopefully we can help you through yours.
Thank you, Cheryl. Last quick question for you before we close out. Someone has asked, are you now on any treatment?
I am not. I've been off treatment since 2016. And yeah, they're all pretty amazed at that whole thing.
Mhm.
In fact, all the
Well,
doctors know who I am.
well, thank you everyone for taking the time out to join. You can see our website here for more information. You can also email me directly if you have questions. I can connect you to Cheryl. We want to help you. That's the short of it. And of course, we're going to be sending you more information about the future components of this webinar. But if you have questions in the interim, please just reach out. We want to help
Yeah,
you.
no, we're here for you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest
Hey,
of the
have a
day.
great day. Thanks for joining
Bye.
us.